Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Can you believe it? It's already the season finale for our first season.
Time flies when you're having fun diving deep into all sorts of fascinating topics.
It really does. Thank you to all of you who've been on this journey with us. We couldn't have done it without you. So for our last deep dive of season 1, we're heading into the business world.
Buckle up. We've got an exciting one in store today.
We're going to be talking about CZB Consultancy and its founder, Krisa Zindros-Boyce.
She's kind of like a secret weapon for businesses,
Especially for mid-sized companies.
Yeah. She helps them build a really strong foundation.
Yeah, I was really struck by the fact that she didn't start out focusing on any specific industry.
Right. A lot of consultants, they try to be the go-to expert for like healthcare or technology.
It seems like it would make sense to have that kind of niche.
You'd think so, but Krisa realized that a lot of the problems mid-sized companies face, they're actually pretty universal.
Like what kinds of problems?
Well, things like, processes that aren't really working well. Oh, I see.
Or communication breakdowns within teams.
Right.
Or even sometimes like a toxic work environment.
Oh, wow.
And these things can happen in any industry.
That's true.
Doesn't matter what you're selling or making.
So by not limiting herself to one specific industry.
She was able to develop like a broader view.
Yeah.
And she could really see these common issues that companies often miss.
Especially when they're so focused on growing their sales and marketing.
Exactly. They're so busy trying to get new customers that they forget to look inward.
Makes sense. So how does she actually help companies with these internal issues?
Well, her company, CZB Consultancy, offers two main services.
Okay, lay it on me.
The first one is fractional operations and strategy.
Fractional.
Yeah. And the second one is cultural work.
I have to admit, I wasn't familiar with the term fractional work before I started researching for this deep dive.
Oh, yeah. It's a relatively new concept, but it's gaining a lot of traction.
So what does it actually mean? So basically, it's like hiring an expert, but only for a fraction of their time.
So instead of bringing someone on full-time.
Right, like, a full-time COO or HR director.
You get someone like Krisa to come in part-time.
Exactly. Maybe just for a specific project.
So it's like having like a high-level executive on call.
That's a great way to put it.
But without having to pay for a full-time salary and benefits.
Exactly. And it gives companies access to expertise that they might not be able to afford otherwise.
That's a really smart approach.
Yeah.
Did Krisa give any examples of how this works in practice?
Yeah, she did. She mentioned working with a manufacturing company to help them streamline their production process.
Oh, cool.
And that led to some serious cost savings for them.
Wow.
And in another case, she helped a tech startup develop a better hiring strategy.
So they could attract the best talent.
Right.
And what about the cultural work side of things? It sounds like that's more about the human element of business.
Absolutely. This is where Krisa's expertise in organizational development and change management really comes in.
So she's helping companies with things like communication issues.
Yes. And also things like, dealing with a toxic workplace.
Oh, that's so important.
And helping to boost employee engagement.
Yeah.
Especially now with so many people working remotely.
It's like, what even is a workplace anymore?
Right. It's not just a physical office.
So she's helping companies adapt to these changes.
Yeah. And she's helping them create a work culture that can thrive in this new virtual world.
It's so interesting how she's not afraid of these big changes happening in the business world.
Yeah, she's really embracing them. She sees them as opportunities.
And that's a lesson for all of us, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Whether you're an entrepreneur or an employee.
The world of work is changing so fast.
And the people who are willing to adapt and learn.
Those are the ones who are going to succeed.
Exactly. So how does Krisa stay ahead of the curve?
Well, she talked about her commitment to always learning new things. She reads a lot about AI and automation.
Oh, wow.
She goes to industry conferences.
It sounds like she's really dedicated to staying on top of trends.
She is.
Yeah.
And she's constantly networking with other people who are like thought leaders in their fields.
It's like she's got her finger on the pulse of the future of work.
I like that.
And that brings us to another interesting point, which is her plans for CZB Consultancy.
Oh, what's she got in store?
She's not content with just, keeping things as they are.
She wants to grow.
Yeah. She wants to expand her reach and start working with bigger companies.
It sounds like she's got big ambitions.
She does. And a real passion for helping businesses succeed.
Definitely. And speaking of passion, I was really struck by her perspective on women in entrepreneurship.
Oh, me too. Especially her observations about how the pandemic has actually created new opportunities for women.
Really? That's interesting. I would have thought it would have made things harder.
It definitely brought its own set of challenges, but
Mm.
it also forced companies to become more flexible.
With things like remote work.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's been a game changer for a lot of women.
Because they can work from home, set their own hours, and be there for their families.
Right. And that kind of flexibility can be so empowering.
It allows them to pursue their goals without having to sacrifice their personal lives.
Absolutely. And Krissa sees this as a positive trend.
That's going to continue to benefit women.
I hope so. It's like the pandemic, in a way, accelerated a shift that was already starting to happen.
Towards a more flexible and inclusive work environment.
Exactly. And that's something we should all be excited about.
Totally. Now, before we get deeper into Chris's thoughts on women in entrepreneurship, I think it's time for a quick break.
Sounds good. We'll be right back with more insights from our deep dive into CZB Consultancy.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before the break, we were talking about how the pandemic, it might have actually opened up some doors for women entrepreneurs. It's kind of counterintuitive, or you wouldn't think a global crisis would lead to positive changes in the business world.
But Chris's view is it's kind of a silver lining in all the chaos.
A silver lining? How so?
Well, the pandemic really pushed companies to embrace remote work way more than they ever had before.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's been huge for a lot of women who maybe were struggling to balance, their work life and family life in a traditional office setting.
They can work from home, set their own hours, and be there for their families.
Exactly. And, that kind of flexibility, it can be really empowering.
It lets them go for those entrepreneurial dreams without feeling like they have to give up their personal lives.
And it's not just working from home, the rise of fractional work, that plays a role here too.
Oh, yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
It's like a perfect fit for women who have the skills and experience, but don't necessarily want to commit to a full-time job.
So they can pick and choose projects they're passionate about and that fit their schedules.
And build their own client base.
And it doesn't matter where they live. They can work with clients all over the world.
Exactly. So the pandemic, it kind of sped up this trend towards a more flexible and inclusive way of working.
Creating new paths for women in business.
And this kind of ties into Chris's whole philosophy about success.
Oh, so?
She talks a lot about the importance of resilience, consistency, and, really trusting your instincts.
Those are great qualities for any entrepreneur, but especially important for women, I'd imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Think about all the expectations society puts on women.
To be caregivers.
Yeah.
To put family first.
And those expectations, they can create these internal roadblocks for women who are trying to start a business.
Self-doubt, guilt, worrying about what other people will think.
Right. But Chris's message is all about pushing past those barriers and trusting your own ability to succeed.
She talks about the importance of really knowing your strengths and not being afraid to take risks.
And having a good support system.
A mentor, a business coach, other entrepreneurs you can connect with. Chris is a great example of all of this, right? She's built this successful business.
And she's navigating all the challenges of this post-pandemic world.
Constantly evolving her approach. It's pretty inspiring.
It shows, success isn't just about having a brilliant idea.
Or a perfect plan.
It's about showing up every day, putting in the work.
And rolling with the punches.
And staying true to your own vision, even when other people might doubt you.
I love that. Defining success on your own terms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of defining success, Krissa talks about this idea of slow and steady growth.
So she's not a fan of that, like, move fast and break things mentality.
Not really. She thinks for mid-sized companies, rapid growth, it can actually be risky.
If you don't have the internal systems in place to support it.
It's like building a house on a weak foundation. It might look good for a while, but it's not going to last.
Better to build a strong base, even if it means going a little slower.
Focusing on quality over quantity.
Sustainability, not just short-term wins.
Exactly. Building something that's built to last.
So for anyone out there thinking about starting their own business, I know it can be scary.
Oh, it's a huge leap. It takes a lot of courage, and you got to be willing to work hard.
But Krissa had some really great advice for those who were just starting out.
She did. Some real gems. One that stuck with me is don't compare yourself to other people.
That's so easy to do these days, right? Especially with social media, everyone's always showing off their successes.
It's easy to feel like you're not doing enough, like you're not moving fast enough.
Not as successful as so-and-so.
But everyone's journey is different.
Carissa reminds us there's no one right way to do it.
So focus on your own goals. Celebrate your own milestones, even the small ones.
And trust your gut. Find your own unique path.
She also talked about the importance of pacing yourself.
Don't try to do everything at once.
And definitely don't make rash decisions.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Take your time. Build that strong foundation. Learn from your mistakes.
Make smart choices that are going to help your business in the long run.
Trust the process, even when things get tough.
Carissa really gets it, the challenges and the rewards of being an entrepreneur.
Her insights are so valuable, whether you're just starting out or you've been in business for a while.
So to wrap up this deep dive into CZB Consultancy, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay, hit us with it.
Carissa talked about trusting that inner ability we all have to build something great.
To create the life we want.
It's about believing in yourself, shutting down that inner critic.
Taking those big, scary steps forward, even when you're not exactly sure where you're going.
Because sometimes the most amazing journeys start with a leap of faith. We've talked about so much in this deep dive into Carissa Zindro's voice and CZB Consultancy.
Yeah, she's got such a unique approach.
I don't know about you, but I'm leaving this feeling super inspired.
Me too. It's one thing to read those generic business books, but hearing Carissa's story, it makes it all real.
Right. It's not just theory. It's like actionable advice.
I think the big takeaway here is that, success in business, it's not just about having an amazing product.
Right. It's not just about marketing.
You need to have that solid internal structure, the stuff that's going to support growth.
That's where Carissa's expertise with fractional work and cultural development really comes in, right?
Yeah, and she's not just about optimizing processes. She's really focused on creating a positive work environment.
Where people feel good about coming to work.
Yeah, they're valued, they're motivated.
And we talked about all the challenges companies are facing today.
Remote work, AI, all that.
But Carissa sees those as opportunities, not roadblocks.
It's kind of like she's saying, don't be scared of change, embrace it.
I love that. And that's good advice for everyone, really.
For sure. Whether you're running your own business or you're just navigating your career.
And I thought her perspective on women in entrepreneurship was really interesting.
Me too. Especially the part about how remote work and fractional work, they can actually be really empowering for women.
Right. It's leveling the playing field in a way.
It's about breaking down those old barriers,
Yeah.
creating a more flexible and inclusive environment.
Yeah. Where women can really thrive.
And it's not just talk with Carissa. She's actually creating those opportunities for women through her own business model.
She's leading by example.
Absolutely. And I think any aspiring entrepreneur out there, they could really learn a lot from her advice.
Oh, yeah, it's gold.
Don't compare yourself to other people.
Trust your instincts.
Raise yourself.
And don't be afraid to do things your own way.
I think a lot of people, they get caught up in that comparison trap, They see what other entrepreneurs are doing and they feel like they have to follow the same path.
And it's easy to get overwhelmed, like you have to do everything at once.
But Carissa's message is all about finding your own way.
And I really appreciate how she talks about the importance of slow and steady growth.
In a world that's obsessed with overnight success.
Right. It's a good reminder that building a successful business takes time. It takes patience.
And a lot of hard work.
So as we wrap up this season of the Deep Dive, I want to leave you with this final thought.
Okay.
Carissa talked about trusting that innate ability we all have to build a business, to make things happen.
To create the life we want.
It's about believing in yourself.
It is.
Shutting down that voice of self-doubt that we all have.
We all have it.
And taking those steps forward, even when it feels scary.
Because sometimes the most incredible journeys, they start with a single step.
A huge thank you to all of you who joined us on this journey this season.
We'll be back soon with Season 2 of The Deep Dive.
We'll be exploring even more fascinating topics, uncovering even more hidden gems of wisdom.
Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.